You saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. 10 movies, 1 week. Let's f***ing... So in no particular order, we're going to be watching Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Emilia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. If you'll allow me to have the name tag and just be frank for a second, I've seen a couple of these movies, not all of them, so a majority of these movies will be seen with funky, fresh eyeballs, but just a couple of them I've already seen. But I'm still going to rewatch them and just tell you what I think about them. And by the end of this video, we're going to decide which movie is going to be the best and worst best picture. This is not going to be a super analytical video. It's just going to be guy watches movies and talks about them. Says what he thinks about the movie. If you like that kind of thing, subscribe. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the video if it even comes out. I just started, so it's too late to get out of this one now. So I wonder which movie is going to be first. What's up, guys? I just got done watching Nickel Boys. I heard people talking about it, never seen any promotional things for it. I went into it completely blind. You know what? This movie is really, really good. So the basic plot of the movie centers around these two characters named Elwood and Turner, and they get sent to a reform school in the 1960s during like the Jim Crow eras. Being that it is set in that time period, the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, this movie touches on a lot of systematic injustices, racism, discrimination. This is told expertly in this movie through the visual standpoint of POV. You watch this entire movie from the perspective of the main characters, literally through first-person point of view, through their eyes. And I thought that was such a good way to get into the moment and be with these characters as they're going through these egregiously hard times. I just wanted to add something that I felt like I didn't really explain that well whenever I was filming this. One thing that I found really interesting about this movie is that they don't treat you like you're stupid. People who know even like a surface level of American history know just how bad it was during the civil rights movement. And this movie doesn't really go into like super disturbing, grotesque imagery when it goes and talking about like those darker aspects of what was happening back then. Whatever bad thing is happening is just off screen. But you're still in the same space. There's no cutaway, so you're just stuck there, just sitting while this is happening over here. I thought it was an interesting and creative way to show just those dark moments. Hopefully I don't have to do a behind-the-scenes edit for this clip if I explain something stupider that I did in this clip. But I'm done here. Hopefully I don't have to do this again, but I'm going back in there. I'm gonna Blue's Clues back in here. Ready? There's two ideologies at play, which was we see injustices happening every day. Should I be the one to bring up these injustices and confront them? Or the other idea is that we see these injustices, but that's just how the system is. It might just be better to just conform to what the system is right now in efforts to hope that one day it'll eventually get better. The black students and the white students are separated into two separate classes. The white students, they're there because they're delinquents, but they still get to play like sports and have these recreational activities. While the black students, they're exploited through manual labor and just their natural talents. One of my favorite scenes in this movie is where one of the, I guess you can call him a counselor, they're using these kids to box and place bets on them. He tells them to throw the third match in the boxing match. I lied. I'm back. I just want to explain why I like this clip just a little bit more, because the way that I explained it in here, like, it just sounds like I'm having an aneurysm. The reason why I like this scene in this movie is because our main characters listen in from behind the scenes and they know that he's supposed to throw the match. And a lot of people know that he's supposed to throw the match. So our main characters are in the know and all the other people in the audience are in the know. And it's up to this guy to satisfy everybody. But what happens is that in this moment, he is in the control because everything rests on this decision. Everyone already placed their bets. Everyone already knows the outcome. He is in control of this position, and he wins knowing that there is a harsh punishment that is following
this boxing match. The whole atmosphere changes. It goes dead silent and it gets super atmospheric. It's played as like, whoops, I messed up. But also, it's like one of the small victories that you get throughout the course of the movie. It makes you feel good for a second, but it also adds a little layer of fear of what is to come for this individual. I feel like I explained that just a little bit better than this guy. So hopefully this guy can carry on this one segment. I'm one movie in, dude. Like, it can't be this crazy. Anyway, throw it back to this.
The cinematography is absolutely glorious. They play a lot with reflections in this movie that really make you think about how you go about looking at your daily life and how you see certain things. Whether it's watching a not so strong magnet like slowly fall off of a fridge, to looking at your reflection in a nearby building, watching the people behind you, but also looking at yourself. I keep wiping my nose. It's cold. It's very cold out here. Also, I found out that this movie was based on a book called The Nickel Boys. It's based off the events of people discovering this reform school that has been around for over 100 years, and they found a bunch of unmarked graves in the back of the school that had multiple bodies that were beaten, bludgeoned. You can find bits and buckshot in some of the bodies. What they were doing at this reform camp to all of these students was just absolutely horrible. Hopefully some of the other movies aren't as heavy. This was a heavy movie to start off on. Like there's one movie that comes to mind where I'm like, how does this movie even compare?
Howdy, y'all. I just got done watching Wicked. I'm starting to think that there might be a reason why all these movies are nominated for Best Picture. Interesting. Anyway, do people need a basic plot for Wicked? I guess there's a green woman who is green, and her name is Elphaba, and she's made of magic. She meets a pink lady played by Ariana Grande who came down on a freaking bubble, dog. She goes to school, figures out that there's something hinky going on, and she has to get behind it. There's a hop, skip, and a jump, and she uncovers a secret. Also, people don't like her because she's green. And that's kind of the movie. Just a little bit. It's a lot better than that dog shit description I just gave. Trust me. It's warm-hearted, it's in your face, it's whimsical. It's everything at the core of what makes a good fairy tale kind of story. I miss... Oh, dude, I forgot I'm wearing the Gojo shirt. Oh, no. I love Cynthia Erivo's songs, every single one that she does. I just love how far people will go with their I Want songs. I like how she starts singing at the school and somehow travels like 1 billion miles to some random field that's also on like a cliffside. So it's like in real time, if she was singing this song, it would have taken her like 8 hours to get to this. And the movie just shows you like the 2-minute cut of that. I really like silly stuff like that. And boy, is this movie silly. It's jam-packed with a whole bunch of wacky characters and cool costumes. And if this movie does not take the Oscar for Best Production Design or Wardrobe or Hair and Makeup, I don't know which movie would. Because it's like they just went above and beyond for every aspect of production design. Personally, for me, the movie is at its best when they're at the Emerald City. The third act of this movie is great. Also, they make it a point to like reveal certain lore aspects of like the Wizard of Oz world that's kind of like whatever, like this is how the flying monkeys became flying monkeys, or this is how the yellow brick road became the yellow brick road. And the reason why it became the yellow brick road is because the Wizard of Oz are just like, all right, which color do you like? Blue, red, yellow? Okay, we'll do yellow. Yeah, Cynthia Erivo, MVP for sure for this movie. I've never seen the original Wicked, and so I don't know how she compares to the actual source material, but I can tell that she made this character her own. She has this sense of just confidence and poise. Even if one of the lines that she says is kind of corny and kind of cringe, it makes sense for her character to be saying it just because it comes off as just so sincere. I feel like she's the only character in this movie where that kind of works. Ariana Grande's character, Galinda, I liked it, but it really felt like I couldn't separate Ariana Grande from the character. She does a good job. It's serviceable. Did not blow me away. But what I will say is that I've seen this movie 2 times. Once when it came out a while ago, and then the second time was literally like a couple minutes ago. I got chills both times listening to Gravity, just because it's just the scene, the pacing, and the way that it's carried. It just strikes this perfect balance that just hit both times. I was like, God dang, that is such a powerful performance. The third act hard carries this movie, but with that part alone, I'm like, give her some kind of award. Some kind of award for at least that. I'd say the biggest L in this movie and the litmus test for if you're going to like this movie is the dancing through life sequence. Now, the reason why I don't really like the beginning of this part is because it feels like the movie turns into a jukebox musical where it's doing all the best hits. If you're a really big fan of Wicked, you're going to love this movie because that's who this movie is specifically tailored for. Like, if you wear the Wicked hat, and you got the Wicked t-shirt, and you drive around on your Wicked pogo stick, this movie is made for you and you will have a great time. But if you just watch this movie and you're not really into theater or stuff like that, the dancing through life sequence is just like, you know what? The story's going to take just like a backseat for a second. We're going to party and then we'll get back to the story. At least that's how I took it. Sometimes it feels like the characters just suddenly just want to sing at each other. Unprompted, man. Which there's another movie that I could think of that does that way, way worse, but that review's coming later. But the dancing through life sequence is just where it all, the movie just stops and it's just like, look at us dance. And right when you get to the end, you get this nice, sincere moment where it all comes together and you get rewarded for sitting through whatever that was. The world feels like it's been lived in. The costumes are great. It's a very, very pretty movie. Long. There's a slight odd pace to the movie where it both of it feels like nothing is happening in some parts, and then also while nothing is happening, it's like speeding through plot points. I don't know how else to say it, but like the second act of this movie, meh. First act, last act, good. Second act, it's just kind of like blah, 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 blah. All right, now we're here. Once you get to the Emerald City, the movie is so good. I don't know if it'll take Best Picture, but I can kind of understand why. You could take it from a certified Wicked hater. I used to hate this shit. I thought the songs were so like popular. I still don't like that song. That song is garbage. Even in this one, it's not good. It's just a lame song. But all the other ones I think are pretty good. I just had to voice that one to fight all the Wicked fans out there. You know who you are. Good movie. I like. Thumbs up. Let's move on to our next movie, which just so happens to be... A Complete Unknown asked the question, who is Bob Dylan? The answer is Timothée Chalamet. Now, I know what you're thinking at home. Oh, here we go. We got another biopic about some famous guy that nobody knows about. It's okay. He's not a monkey this time. This time around, he's Timothée Chalamet, and he's not CG. I still haven't watched Better Man, but that movie seems like a good movie. A Complete Unknown isn't your standard biopic. It's less about Bob Dylan, like the Bob Dylan story, and more so about capturing the energy of a specific moment in time, specifically the early 60s folk scene in New York City. This movie shows the rise of Bob Dylan throughout 1961 to 1965, right when he switches from folk music to more electric folk music. I'm gonna get this right out the way. I don't know anything about Bob Dylan other than this movie and just like some tidbits I've heard throughout the course of my life up till this point. I'm not a Bob Dylan fan. I have not listened to a Bob Dylan album. I treat Bob Dylan the same way I treat the Beatles. I understand that they were a huge star in their time and made a bunch of really, really amazing stuff. I just missed out on the hype. I can't get as invested as these guys did, but I commend them, and it doesn't really detract from the fact that they are who they are. They're important people for a reason. This movie does talk about like how this nobody kid bursts onto the scene and totally reinvents what it means to be a protest singer and leaving behind a trail that just blows people's minds. It's not really about like the birth of rock stardom. It's much more about like the way art and history can totally get tangled up sometimes, and the people who end up changing the world are the ones who really didn't really plan on it. And you see this a lot in this movie with Bob Dylan really being challenged by the concept of his own fame. He doesn't want to be put on a certain pedestal or put in a certain box or be labeled a certain thing. And I mean, honestly, who would? Who would? You want to be labeled right now? Do you want to be put in a box? I'll put you in a box. Just kidding. But one of the big examples of that in the film is when he does his big switch from folk music to electric folk music, which divides his fan bases into two different camps. One that is just like, bro, this guy totally lost his mind. He doesn't know what it means to be a folk singer anymore, just to be a man with a guitar and a harmonica and just sitting in a room with only white people and just singing about problems that they can relate to. And now he's doing this other thing. Ugh. I hate this guy. He holds true to himself, and when he wants to do a thing, he's going to do the thing. And it doesn't just stop with his relationship with his fans, it's also the relationship with his music label and also his personal romances that he goes through. He's a complicated guy. And multiple times in this movie, characters will just stop to just call Bob Dylan an asshole, and he's just kind of like, yeah, man knows what he is, question mark, because he's still like an enigma by the end of this movie. And I think that's mainly because I guess Bob Dylan doesn't really talk about a lot of personal things out in the public, because why would he? he's like, does he need to? I don't think so, other than stuff that he puts into his art and his music. Controversial take here. Timothy Chalamet just might be a good actor. I don't know about you guys out there, but I've seen Mr. Timothy Chalamet in a couple of things, and man knows how to act. I know he loves playing these quirky little characters. Give Timothy Chalamet every quirky character and let him go wild. I don't know all of Bob Dylan's mannerisms, but I could really tell that Timothy Chalamet like completely immersed himself in this role. There's this vulnerability in his performances, and there's this timidness and this anxiety. But it's also paralleled with this incredible, like, confident intensity in himself and his work. He's almost depicted as this savant kind of guy. Now, I don't know what other people think about this movie. I thought it was a fun movie. If you're not into Bob Dylan's music, boy oh boy, are you going to hear every single song this man has ever written. Just kidding. But anytime they do play a song in this movie, it's like the whole song. So you're gonna leave this movie knowing at least 2 songs. And is that a good thing? I don't know. Depends if you like folk music, which I'm not really a fan of folk music. Watching this movie really made me like step into the shoes of like a parent who has a child that is into something that you have absolutely no idea why that they're into this thing, but they're super into it, and you're just like, you know what? Go you. The pacing of this movie being what it is, where it's not supposed to be like the entire story of Bob Dylan's life, it does jump around to certain bits. Some parts are being fast-tracked, but I feel like that's kind of the story that it's trying to tell, where it's just this one specific moment. And I feel like if you're going into this movie thinking that you're going to get all this secret information about all this stuff, that's just not what the movie is. This movie reminds me of Nashville, if anyone's ever seen that movie. The entire movie kind of feels like a concert. The music services the characters, and it also moves the story along, and it feels natural, being that this is about a musician. Right? That also does help. It's not just like, all right, time to sing the Bob Dylan best hits. You get to delve deeper into the creation behind some of these songs and some of the meanings. His relationships with other musicians, one of them being Mr. Johnny Cash, who does a great job at this movie. Whenever he was singing, I thought, dang, that sounds like Johnny Cash. When Timothy Chalamet sings in this movie, it takes a second to be like, okay, that's how he sings. I'm just gonna go with this, because he kind of does like this half like, man, I don't know. Overall, learned a couple of things about Bob Dylan, what the time was like, and just how invested people were into folk music. Think about that for a second. People got that invested into folk music. This movie taught me that music really is powerful. And I wish that one movie on this list would take a note from that and put that into their movie too. But we're not there yet. But we aren't close to the next movie, which just so happens to be... Yup. We just watched ourselves a Conclave, starring Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, and a bunch of other guys. Guys, you might want to watch this one. I'm going to get this out of the way. I thought it was the most 5 out of 10 movie. Looked really good. I love all the acting. I love the performances. It's just a sit down and talk movie. But brother, the ending of this movie is so diabolical. I can see the crew behind the scenes pulling out their most wicked Grinch smile, filming the last scene of this movie. All I can say is some people are not going to be happy with what this movie does, but I think it's metal. I think it's rock and roll. It really comes out of nowhere. The plot for Conclave, the newest pope in movie universe, dies. And it's up to a bunch of cardinals and bishops to run a conclave and choose who is going to be the next pope out of the bunch of them. Another way I could describe this movie is 12 Angry Men, except it's 108 passive-aggressive cardinals trying to vote in a new pope. It's a voting movie. If you came here for super awesome, fantastic, Fast and Furious, Avengers, backflips and guns and explosions, this is not, well, there is an explosion. This is not your movie. Other than that one explosion, it's a voting movie. You know, a lot of talking, a lot of sitting around, a lot of yes. Did you hear the blah 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 blah? But anyway, amongst all these bishops and cardinals trying to vote each other in to be the new pope, a conspiracy is afoot. Information about people in the church start to come to life, and that's pretty damning evidence. And you know, one by one, people drop out, people pull out, and at the end, they vote in who they think would fit best as the new pope. And the person that they vote in as the new pope, that is the pull of the century. It comes so out of left field. Like for a majority of this movie, I'm a be honest, man. It was boring. I was really not digging this movie. But bro, this one thing happens, it sneaks its way into the plot, and you're like, oh no. Oh. As soon as it happened, I literally pulled an emote. I was like, Ralph Fiennes is okay in this movie. It's to me personally, I feel like this is not his best role, but still, he does a great job. Stanley Tucci, great as always amazing. Whenever I see that man, that glorious, that beautiful man in anything, just want to sneak up on him and give him a kiss. Maybe not sneak up on him. It's probably not okay. This movie touches on a lot of issues with the Catholic Church. It doesn't try to hide the fact that these issues are issues. There's politics with certain people amongst the church and certain ideologies that they believe in and don't believe in. Amongst everybody who wants to be the Pope, there's a distinct reason why they want to do it, and not every single one lines up. It's more political than faith-based. It's this whole ginormous conspiracy. Also, there's a nun character in this movie. That's it. Roaming around, going from door to door. I don't know what all that was. Maybe there was something deeper. Maybe you guys can tell me. Maybe there was a hidden gem, a hidden secret that I missed. I probably did. The ending 100% saves this movie, at least for me. If you're into a lot of just like sit down, talk dialogue, this is your movie. This is definitely your movie. If you like courtroom movies, this is definitely your movie. This is definitely your movie. If this wins Best Picture, wow. Rock and roll, dude. Like, wow. I don't have anything else to say about this movie. I'm done. I wish I could go back in time, wipe my memory, and watch this movie, and then film this review, because nothing will beat the first time you watch The Substance. Out of all the movies that I went to go see in the movie theater, this is still one of my favorite theater experiences. The ending of this movie is just so metal. Anyway, The Substance. It's a movie about a celebrity named
Elizabeth
Sue,
Sparkle,
a fading celebrity, trying to stay relevant in the youth-obsessed entertainment industry. So it's just what any fading star would do in this scenario. She turns to the black market, and they give her a drug called the Substance that promises to make her younger and more perfect. But there's a catch. The drug creates a literal younger version of herself named Sue, played by Margaret Qualley. I don't know if I said this before, but Elizabeth is played by Demi Moore, our main character. Elizabeth and Sue share the same body, swapping consciousness every 7 days, leaving time for weird and wacky, disturbing antics to ensue. The Substance is a really, really bold movie. It's in your face and on the nose about its themes. At parts, it doesn't take itself too seriously, but that's an enhancement in the viewing of this movie. This movie blew up over the course of last year. I know this is some people's Everything Everywhere All at Once movie, and it makes sense. The movie tackles the idea of people's obsession with youth and perfection. It's an idea that they take to an extreme and uncomfortable place. It tackles the issues with super high beauty standards and those who are seen as more unconventionally attractive in the eyes of the media and entertainment and just people in general. You can say that this is a commentary on Hollywood and the pressure on women to look a certain way. Demi Moore seriously gives a committed performance in this movie. You really got to hand it to her for diving into such a weird and challenging role. I'll say it right now. The Substance has made like another great iconic monster that I believe will go down in cinema history as being like one of the greats. You got your Cronenbergs, you got The Fly. I feel like The Substance is definitely in that realm. Some of the best practical body horror effects I've seen in a long time. The only other movies I can think of, Smile, Smile 2, and Barbarian. Those movies had really great prosthetics. This movie shines at that. Sometimes I feel like some of the gross out parts are a little too much, but this is supposed to be a movie that's just a little bit extra in all aspects. There's like a couple of scenes where there's like teeth getting ripped out and like nails that are getting pulled off. That part felt gross just to feel gross. And because this movie is just so out there, some of the themes just feel kind of heavy-handed at sometimes, both to its strengths and to its weaknesses. Like the introduction of the substance, they really go out to spell out like, all right, this is what it is. This is the activator. This is the food that you got to eat. And it's showed in like little cards. And I know that there's a rule in movies called show, don't tell. There's not a lot of dialogue in this movie, which I do enjoy. It just felt like getting people to understand the rules of the substance felt a lot like, all right, literally read this manual right now. Read all of the instructions so we're all on the same page. All right, you got it? You got it? All right, okay, we're going to check up on you in a couple of minutes just to make sure that you know what this does. Remember that. The whole movie's about how women are pressured to look a certain way, and the movie plays on the idea that women are constantly being watched and judged for their appearance. Elizabeth Sparkle's whole career in this movie is built on being good looking. It shows how women are constantly sexualized in media and how that can be damaging, but also on the other hand, it uses the exact same sexualization to shock the audience and to get people's attention to be more aware of this kind of thing. There's also commentary to say on the lengths that people will go for perfection and how that obsession can backfire. There's this constant pressure to be sexy all the time, which in this movie is seen as problematic and unnatural and important to a lot of people, whether or not it is a good or a bad thing to be obsessed with somebody solely because you feel sexually attracted. Sue's character is seen as just this ideal version of the beauty standard, but if anything goes wrong with how she looks, it's seen as this huge problem. By the end of this movie, we get to see the complete opposite, where you get to see the extreme unconventional beauty standards. Inside, they're still the same person, but everyone views them as this monster, as this disgusting creature that it's a shame that my eyes even had to see this right now. Get this out of my face. Get this out of my face. The whole movie has this amazing surreal feel to it. The sound design is out of this world. It just elevates every single scene to make it just the most uncomfortably gross thing to sit through. First time I watched this movie, I thought it was the most 5 out of 10 movie, but the ending saved it. The ending to me recontextualized the entire movie, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's about this. Second time I watched it, I don't even know what I was thinking. This movie is fantastic and a complete and utter mindfuck. There's themes about identity and what it means to be human. It makes you question what parts of yourself are really yours and what's just stuff that you picked up along the way. A lot of eyeball close-ups in this one. If you like eyeball close-ups, sometimes the camera gets really close to the characters. There's a 5mm lens just right up to your face. But it's supposed to be uncomfortable. It's supposed to be weird. This is the Wacky Uncle movie. And I feel like a lot of people are rooting for this movie. It was a cultural sensation. There's a lot of craze for it. Everyone and their mom saw it. And if you saw this movie with your mom, God rest your soul. Anyway, good movie. This is my second take doing this. I recorded this whole thing, went to go edit it, and then it turned out that I was just completely off screen. So if I'm completely off screen right now, God help my soul. Anyway, I just got done watching Dune 2, the sequel to Dune 1. That's right before Dune 3. A lot to talk about. We got ourselves another Denis Villeneuve. I can never say his name, so hopefully somebody in the comments please tell me how to pronounce his name, because I don't know. But he's the guy that gave us Enemy, he gave us Incendies, he gave us Dune Part 1, and then he gave us this movie. And I'm just gonna say this right out the bat. I wasn't super in love with Dune Part 1. Don't get me wrong, my favorite aspects of that movie was the sound design, and definitely it had amazing cinematography. It completely carries over from that film to this one. Absolutely stunning wide shots. The majority of this movie is shot on Arrakis, and whenever we cut to these ginormous cutaways, it just looks like you're staring down like 17 football fields. And then you have the shallow depth of field guy in the foreground. The man just knows how to fill up the frame and make things look pretty. It's super inventive as a sci-fi. The world feels so real. It feels lived in. This whole movie is pretty much the midpoint section of the Paul Duke of Arrakis movie. A majority of this film is just a love story between Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya. Their chemistry feels real, it feels believable, and nothing feels forced. It's an endearing romance amongst both of these characters. The story revolves around the Fremen are battling with the idea that Paul just might be this messiah character that they've been waiting for to free them from the life that they have been living for so long and to restore Arrakis to what it's been. The other Fremen that believe that this whole thing is just a whole bunch of hoopla, Paul is just Paul. Actually, he's Timothée Chalamet. What are you guys even thinking? So, you're the messiah. You're not the Messiah. Paul's like, I'm not the Messiah. And then by the end, he's like, all right, maybe I might be. And that's not really a spoiler because the next movie is literally called Dune Messiah. Just so people know, you do need to watch the first Dune movie to kind of understand this one. Both of those movies go hand in hand. Did I fully understand the first movie? No. Did I watch a 10-minute recap to refresh myself in order to watch this movie? Yes. Did I totally understand everything from that recap? No. Did I still enjoy the movie? Yeah. There's a lot of things to enjoy about this movie, and it tricks you into thinking that spending time in a desert will be amazing. But in reality, it won't be as orange, it won't be as cinematic, and there will be significantly less Zendaya whenever you go to the desert. So, be that as it may, where the cards lie. What other metaphor that I could use to fill up space right now? There's a lot of characters in this movie that are just begging for screen time. The majority of this film is just that couple interaction. It's not cheesy. It's not cringe. It does feel like, all right, here's our main story. All right, now this. All right, get back to this. Tell this for a little bit. All right, now this. All right, now let's sit back here for a second. Others would call that coverage. The pacing, the storytelling in the beginning parts of this movie feel pretty good. The ending of this movie, there's an action sequence that felt a little lackluster to me, but I wish that we could just hold in this moment just for a couple of minutes and then move on. But it still had the tension, it still had the stakes, and it still had the payoff. And you know what? I was satisfied. This movie is your ideal blockbuster. You got yourself your action, you got yourself the love story. No wacky animal characters. That's a negative. Everyone and their mom rides a worm in this movie. Also, I forgot how many famous people are in the Dune movies. Every time a new person showed up, it was just kind of like a guess who of like, oh yeah, that's right, this person is in this movie. Holy shit, this person's in this movie too. Oh my god, is that Christopher Walken? What the flip? Anyway, I don't even know if I have to talk about the cinematography. I feel like everyone already knows that the Dune movies look fantastic. Everyone already knows about the whole infrared, black and white Colosseum scene and how awesome that looks. I don't have to reiterate that. It's freaking nominated for Best Picture. Like, you're going to see some top-notch VFX. I didn't get around to watching this one in theaters, and I kind of regret it. Where the movie really shines is that beautiful sound design. Every line wraps around your head. That voice that they do in that movie, it sounds so gritty and so guttural. Definitely one of those theater experiences that I missed out on. Had a good time watching Dune 2, and I feel like I've been talking out here for like a million hours. Hopefully I'm still in the center of the screen. If I have to come back and record this, I'm going to lose my god dang mind. Peace out. I'm gonna go watch the next movie. Just got done watching Sean Baker's Anora. So this is a movie that a lot of buzz during the Cannes Film Festival, skyrocketed to the top of everyone's reviews, and they were like, this is the movie you gotta see. It's a great debut film for Mikey Madison. I don't know if she's been in any other movie. She probably has. Anora follows the story of a sex worker who falls in love with this rich guy who has this giant mansion. He throws all these parties. They just have the best time all the time. And hop, skip, and a jump, they end up getting married, tying the knot the old-fashioned way in New Vegas. Not New Vegas, Las Vegas. Las Vegas. The twist that we get to see, he is the son of this very, very wealthy Russian family, and he's been using their money to have a whole bunch of parties and having a whole bunch of fun. They find out that their son blew a bunch of money on a sex worker and got married. That's not going to look good for them, so they want to annul the marriage. So they send a whole bunch of goons, not only to find this guy after he runs away after hearing this news, but to dismantle their marriage and get things back to normal. And all in the midst of this, Anora sits waiting, trying to figure out what's going on with this family. Obviously, it's a movie about sex work, so you would assume that it's a very pronounced aspect of this movie, but in reality, at least from how I saw it, the sex work really does take a back seat. And it's really, to me, I feel like this movie's about the portrayal of sex workers in the public eye, and also the mentality that I guess some sex workers have. The son of the wealthy family, his name is Vanya. He's a very childish adult who just very lazy, loves to party, loves to smoke, loves to drink, loves to do all these things. But when anything comes to taking accountability and being responsible, that's not really his vibe. He just likes to use things because he has the ability to. All the men in this movie have a different outlook on how they view sex work. Vanya sees sex work as a means to an end, but it's an exchange that gets to his head because it's something seen as pleasurable, that as long as you have the money, you can maintain and you can withhold it. And so whenever Vanya and Anora get into their relationship, you feel this sense of taboo, being like, is this really how an organic relationship is going to start? Obviously, it's a movie. It's not going to be the perfect Cinderella story. There's going to be some taboo. Vanya takes things for granted all the time. I feel as if that is a microcosm of how some men view people in sex work. And whenever the other goons start to show up to catch Vanya, they all view Anora with this dated kind of outlook, to where she's just this escort. She's a hooker. She's a prostitute. She's all of these things except Anora. Like she can't just be like a woman in love with a man. She has to be her profession, and that's who she is. But there's one man in amongst the goons that treats Anora like a person, and he's the only one that calls her Anora. Anora likes to call herself Annie throughout the course of the movie, and that guy's name is Igor. He's the only one in this movie that genuinely like cares for her situation and treats her as if she's not just some sex worker. Those are two separate aspects of her life. There's Annie, and then there's Anora. He's the only one that gets to notice that. But then when it comes to Anora's character herself, she's a little bit complicated. She partly knows what she wants out of life. In her reality, in her view, and her output in the world, because of the profession that she's in, she views men only as these people that solely want something out of you. A man doesn't want to be with you because you're you. A man wants to be with you because you give him this. She does struggle with throughout the movie, and she's not perfect. You definitely feel bad for her in this whole situation, because for her, this is like the first time someone like genuinely she felt this way about somebody, but she got into this relationship because it was for money. This whole situation, does it only gain value because it was transactional? Whether or not a transactional love is something that is comparable to a real and genuine love. It's not like she's stupid. She understands that, like, when you're doing work, you're doing work. But I guess to a point, it can get to your head where you think that if all these guys are coming in here, it's this routine. What do they want from me? Do they care about me, or do they care about the thing? It's a really, really good movie. A lot of solid performances. The guy who plays Igor got nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and I'm really excited for that guy because he doesn't say a lot in this movie, but you can tell that there's a lot of internal dialogue. Like, you can always tell what a character is thinking. I love how the genres change, where it starts off as this kind of like, the night is yours, we're young, we're free, let's just go get it, let's just go hog wild, bursting out the top of the limo with fireworks blowing off in the background. And then it turns into like this melodramatic screwball comedy, and then it ends just melodramatic. The search for Vanya was a little bit long. The latter half of this movie, there's just a lot of like, hey, have you seen this guy? Hey, have you seen this guy? Hey, have you seen this guy? There's a lot of that going on. While that's going on, yet again, it's that internal dialogue and those internal conflicts that you can just read into every character like a book, with every single struggle that they're having. Mikey Madison, awesome in this movie. So good, so good. Like, a lot of this movie feels like it's just improv. It feels real. On the surface, it's not the most crazy story, but it's still a fun experience. Does it reach the exact same hype that I've heard about throughout just like the past year? Not really for me. It's just a fun movie that has these really intense scenes that just make you stop and think. I try to dive deeper because the movie doesn't tell you outright like who all these characters are, and so it's up to you to kind of like dive deeper yourself to really understand where everyone's coming from. Also, the kid that played Vanya, he played the most punchable kid on the planet. Absolutely great job. So props to everybody. Props to Sean Baker. This movie is good. So good. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this movie. I thought this movie was good. Have a good time. And next movie, I definitely talked for 20 minutes. What's up, guys? I just got done watching The Brutalist. I just want to start this off by saying Brutalist does not mean to be brutal the most. It's actually like a form of like architecture. I didn't know this movie was going to be about architecture. I went into this completely blind, and I was like, oh, that's not what brutalist means. It's about brutalism, the art form. So I'm not gonna act all artsy fartsy and pretend like I understood that and knew that from the get-go. I did not. But anyway, The Brutalist, it's a very demanding film, one that confronts the viewer with raw, unvarnished realities of post-war America through the lens of our main character, Laszlo Toth, a Holocaust survivor and architect. This is a film by Brady Corbet, and the film is not a comfortable narrative of triumph over adversity. Rather, it is a stark examination of trauma, exploitation, and the elusive nature of the American dream. The film meticulously dissects the theme of assimilation, showcasing its corrosive effects. Laszlo has a cousin in the movie that embodies this pressure to erase his past, adopting a new name and a completely new religion to blend into American society. And his treatment of Laszlo is relegated to this diminished underscore of the film's exploration of how the past can be conveniently forgotten or even rejected in the pursuit of acceptance. Another central narrative is the exploitation of artistic talent. Guy Pearce plays a character named Harrison Van Buren, who is a wealthy patron that views Laszlo's architectural genius as a commodity. The relationship lays bare the power dynamics between those who create and those who fund, highlighting the compromises and ethical dilemmas that artists face all the time. And the film does not shy away from the darker implications of this dynamic, culminating into a very disturbing scene in the second half of this film that really underscores the extent of Van Buren's control over Laszlo's vulnerability. The Brutalist also effectively dismantles the myth of the American dream. His journey is just a series of disillusionments marked by discrimination, poverty, and the constant struggle to rebuild a life shattered by trauma. The film portrays America not as this land of boundless opportunity, but as a place where systematic inequalities and these lingering shadows in the past can crush even the most resilient of spirits. Architecture becomes a profound form of exploration in this film. It's a language that Laszlo grapples with as he's building the Van Buren Institute, designed for Van Buren's recently deceased mother. The film delves into the complexities of human relationships, Laszlo's bond with his wife, Ezra, played by Felicity Jones, who did an outstanding performance. So amazing. Their relationship is a poignant portrayal of love and resilience in the face of unimaginable suffering. Though they share these shared experiences and that binds them together, it also creates this chasm of just pain and struggle that they try to bridge throughout the course of the movie. And so ultimately this movie is about the persistence of memory and how the past can haunt the present. Being that Laszlo is a survivor of the Holocaust, it's something that's a part of his life and, is always shaping his relationships and his art, and it's not something that he can just forget. The film is challenging. It's a tragically rewarding experience that offers a nuanced and unflinching exploration of human resilience and enduring art in the face of unspeakable trauma. This is a movie that lingers. It's a 3-hour-long movie, which can be a turnoff for a lot of people, but at least in my viewing experience of this movie, I just found the time to just fly by. The movie, it's gorgeous. It's shot in 70mm VistaVision, so it has this classic Hollywood cinematic look to it that reminisces of a bygone era. Beautiful shots of all these landscapes and different shots of architecture sprinkled throughout the movie. Lots of intense and emotional scenes. Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones are a huge standout in this film. And in the very first scene that Adrian Brody is in, I'm like, this guy is an actor. This guy acts his goddamn pants off. Only real gripe about this movie is the epilogue. This movie is so long that it's split into parts, even with an intermission. It has a whole overture. The epilogue of this movie seemed like they were trying to tie off some loose ends that otherwise, if they didn't have it, I feel like the movie would have hit the same without that part, but still enjoyed it nonetheless. Also, this movie takes place in Pennsylvania. That's a plus. Always enjoy some good Pennsylvania Pennsylvania rep. This movie tricked me into caring about architecture, but maybe that's a good thing. The score is so beautiful. This film reminds me of one of my favorite films ever made, which is called The Seven Beauties by Linda Wertmuller. And oh man, I could watch this movie again, but I'm not, because I have other movies to watch, like this one. I just got done watching I'm Still Here, a movie by Walter Sales. I think that's how you say his name. On the surface, I'm Still Here is a biographical drama, but beneath that, it's a powerful exploration of memory, resilience, lingering scars of political oppression. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, it really didn't grip me the way that I would have wanted it to, only up until the very end of the movie. That's when I got the most invested. At the end of the movie, you find out that this whole thing that you're watching is based on a true story. I didn't know that. Our story centers around our main character, Anisa Paiva, played expertly by Fernanda Torres, and then later by her mother, Fernanda Montenegro. It follows her journey after her husband, Rubens Paiva, a political dissident, is forcibly disappeared during Brazil's military dictatorship. We see this idyllic family life and then this sudden brutal intrusion of the regime. The emotional weight of this film is just carried by Torres. You feel her desperation, you feel her strength, you feel her unwavering fight for answers. The best way I can describe the feeling of this movie is just like phantom pains. The way that her husband disappears, it's just such in like a nonchalant way, but it's the most impactful thing that happens in the movie, and it's felt in the background in like every single scene of just like, why can't we get an answer? What's happening to him? What's happening to our family? What's happening to the people around us? It was just an interesting look on how something so precious to you, like near and dear, close to your heart, can just be taken away just like that with seemingly no answer. And by the time you do get the answer for why he was taken and what happens to him afterwards, it's even more unsatisfying to hear. But it's unsatisfying in a good way. This film isn't just entertainment, it's a cultural battleground. It's a fight for historical truth. The fact that it made it to the Academy Awards just really does amplify that. There was a lot of hiding evidence with this regime in real life. If they hadn't taken record of this and told the story, and if this book hadn't been written, this entire story of this family would have just been forgotten. There are deniers that say it's never happened, and it wasn't as bad as it was, and it's just stuff like this that really brings these issues and these stories to life that otherwise would have gone unnoticed. Fernanda Torres' strength throughout this movie, she became this force of change in the face of unimaginable loss that she didn't even know that she had. And I found myself wanting to learn more after watching this movie. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know everything about politics. I know every single social issue that's going on, but it was definitely just like a reality check. It's stuff that you don't get to see all the time. Film plays an important role in this movie. The kids in this movie are going around filming everything to preserve the good times that their family had. Watching these little short films that they're making throughout the course of their life, it just strikes this really meaningful and emotional chord. The children in this movie were not too much. Always a plus whenever child actors are not too screamy or too annoying. They really struck a nice balance. It's a shockingly really calm but suspenseful movie. Essentially, these people get trapped in their own house for a really long time, and they don't understand why, and they can't leave, and they're not getting any answers. It's calm, suspenseful, and frustrating. And at the end, when you do get your answer, it's that sense of relief for knowing and finally coming to some kind of conclusion. And sometimes that conclusion isn't really what you're looking for. This is a movie that I had to just sit down and think about it just for a second after I got done watching it. I feel like a lot of stuff was just going over my head, and I was just going with the flow. I'm glad that I did just sit down and just like take a little bit of time to reflect. The movie's a lot deeper than it leads on, and I really did appreciate that. I'm Still Here. Good movie. Unfortunately, we have to go to our last movie, which you all know what it is by now. We've been teasing it this whole time. So let's just peel off the Band-Aid together. And let's cut to Emilia Perez is a story that centers around a Mexican drug cartel leader who is tired of their violent life and decides to transition and start anew. With the help of a lawyer, she undergoes gender reassignment surgery and adopts a new identity, cutting ties to all of her close ones, loved ones, partner, and children. Years later, longing for a connection to her past, she returns to her family, posing as a long-lost relative. As she reintegrates into her family life, she is haunted by her former past and the violence she once orchestrated. Her attempts to reconcile her past with her present life lead to a series of morally complex situations, ultimately culminating in a tragic confrontation that forces her to face the consequences for her actions. Emilia Perez is a movie that wears its ambitions on its sleeve. It tackles the weighty themes of gender identity, family dynamics, and the lingering effects of violence. While it has moments of undeniable power, the film ultimately falters due to a combination of tonal inconsistencies, underdeveloped characters, and a predictable narrative. The film's exploration with gender identity, while being ambitious, feels superficial and rushed. Emilia's transformation is a pivotal moment in the narrative, but lacks the depth and the complexity necessary to resonate with viewers, in my opinion. The surrounding characters, particularly within the family unit, are reduced to mere archetypes, lacking in dimensionality to drive the story forward. One of the most jarring elements of Emilia Perez is the inclusion of musical numbers. These sequences are jarringly out of place within the film's gritty and emotionally charged atmosphere, which detract from the narrative rather than enhancing it. Also, the film's tone shifts dramatically between these musical interludes and the core story that can leave you feeling disoriented and disconnected. Now, I will say, Emilia Perez has one thing going for it. It's the fact that anybody can sing any of these Emilia Perez songs. You don't need to be able to hold a tune. You don't even need to practice. You don't even need vocal cords. You can sing any of these songs in this movie, bar none. Although most of the songs in this movie are considerably tone deaf, there are a few, in my opinion, that I think are pretty alright. But a majority of these songs feel like you described music to an alien, and then an alien described that to a monkey, and then a monkey described that to a rock, and then a rock made the movie. Despite these shortcomings, the film boasts a visually striking style. The cinematography, while serving the story, also creates a distinct and memorable atmosphere, and the actress portraying Emilia delivers a somewhat nuanced and very emotionally charged performance, capturing their characters' internal struggles, strengths, and vulnerabilities. However, these positive elements are ultimately overshadowed by the film's narrative flaws. The predictable plot and underdeveloped characters prevent Emilia Perez from achieving its full potential. While the film's exploration of important themes is commendable, its execution leaves a lot to be desired. The film tries to weave together this narrative crime redemption story in the framework of a musical, and it's just demonstrably just tone deaf throughout the entire movie. At a certain point, this movie turns into Mrs. Doubtfire, but unlike Mrs. Doubtfire, that movie knows that it's slightly comedic and it knows the tone that it's trying to tell. This movie feels like it just does not. The music doesn't clash with the narrative that it's telling, and its narrative doesn't clash with the music. And the narrative that it is telling is not that deep. It has some pretty emotional scenes. I can say that the choreography of this movie is pretty good. Some of the scenes as just sole components are good, but when you string them together as sequences and as scenes in this movie, the movie ultimately falls flat. So I do believe that Emilia Perez could have been better. There were bits that I found kind of enjoyable, almost like how you enjoy like Madam Web or like Morbius, one of those kinds of movies, where it's just kind of like, it's so absurd in what you're seeing that like, I've never seen anything like Emilia Perez. I don't think a lot of people have seen anything kind of like Emilia Perez. I feel like this movie was trying to pull something on the likes of All That Jazz and ultimately fell a little flat with its narrative and its storytelling. Some bits are kind of flashy and the cinematography is good in some bits. The songs come out of nowhere, and ultimately I feel like the movie doesn't really know what it wants to say, and when it does say something, it kind of contradicts itself. So that's all I gotta say about Emilia Perez. I think we're done here. Let's move on to the final bit of this video.
Congratulations, you've made it to the end of this video. Or, congratulations, you skipped to the end of this really long video. Either way, you're here, and we're going to get down to the brass tacks. We just watched 10 of the best movies from the opinions of those in the Academy. And amongst all of these films, we're going to choose one to be the definitive, and no one can question it. No one can fight it. When a man on the internet declares something to be the best, god damn it, it's the best in their own opinion. All right, this is how it's going to work. I'm going to give you my 9 to 3, and then after that, with our last 3 movies, I'm going to give you the worst best film, the runner-up, and our best film. I already decided where all these movies are going to go, and you know what? We also got a cool tier list, too. Anyway, let's get ready and let's get upset. Number 9, we have Conclave. Followed in the number 8 position, Wicked. Wow, yes, I know what I just did. Number 7, we have A Complete Unknown. Followed by Timothée Chalamet yet again in Dune 2. Number 5, we have I'm Still Here. Followed by Anora. And then in our number 4 position, we have The Substance. Take a good look at this list. You see it? Cool. Now we're getting down to the nitty gritty. What's gonna be the worst best film? Is it going to be Nickel Boys? It's Emilia Perez. Obviously, it's like it has to be. The movie that currently has the most nominations, I think it has 13 Oscar nominations. What is happening? I think it would be really funny if Emilia Perez won, just because the internet would explode. Objectively, against all of these movies, the cons really do outweigh the pros when it comes to any kind of comparison. Now we're down to our best 2 movies, the definitive 100% concrete list of what is the best, chosen by a man on the internet. Here we go. Our runner-up is Nickel Boys. Nickel Boys. That means our best film is The Brutalist. I was really flip-flopping between Nickel Boys, The Brutalist. I couldn't give it to The Substance. Not as well written as something like Anora, but I feel like The Substance has better moments. I was really tossing and turning between these two. Honestly, I feel like The Brutalist, Nickel Boys, and The Substance are probably my favorite movies that came out last year. Just because I picked a movie over another movie does not mean that I think it's literally the best movie ever. If I were to rewatch any of these movies, I'd probably rewatch The Substance. But I think when you break down all the core components, The Brutalist just makes it up there. I think it's extremely well written. I think the cinematography is amazing. The score is beautiful. It's an outstanding lead performance. I did have like a minor qualm with it. Ultimately, unlike Emilia Perez, the pros outweighed the cons. Honestly, on a Monday, I would probably pick Nickel Boys. On a Tuesday, I would probably pick Brutalist. It could be like this. I think the Brutalist just sneaks in there just at the very end. But anyway, here's the final list of all the movies. There you go. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. It took me a hot second to make it, but we did it. A little rough, 10 movies in 7 days. But if you enjoy content like this and you want to see more, leave a comment down below. If you want to support me in this channel, just hit that subscribe button because we're not going anywhere. Unless this video flops, then I guess it's back to the drawing board. Let me know what your favorite movie out of this bunch was, or what was your favorite movie of last year in general. If Challengers was up here, I think that would have been my best film. Don't know what happened, but this is what we got. Anyway, thanks for hanging out. Really does mean a lot, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.